Okay, welcome everyone to this episode of Listen Christie, and we have a guest with us today, Kylynn Olena, and she is somebody who is a vigilante of the truth, I'd like to say, and just for anybody watching, this could have a trigger warning. We're going to be covering a case that everybody in the nation's kind of talking about right now, the Mica Kelly case, and we all are aware that there's facts and there's truths and there's law enforcement, and the FBI has now been called in to investigate this case. But there is a whole tribe of people who are involved and invested in making sure that the right answers come to light. And because of Christie's passion in law enforcement and canines, that has taken us to a place on TikTok where there's a group of these people sitting and doing investigative work and doing police work in their free time because they want to make sure that the right people deserve or receive the justice that they so deserve. And so this is going to be an episode where we go through the timeline. We talk about the facts of the case that have been released, and other facts of the case that, people are still speculating about. And you can take it for what you will and maybe get invested and involved yourself in just trying to help make sure that nothing gets missed, right? So with that being said, Kylynn, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. So grateful to be here. Yeah, Micah Miller was a case that definitely has been in the media a lot, and people have very polarizing thoughts and opinions on in regards to information that has been released and information that has yet to be released still. She was married to Pastor John-Paul Miller, who was the lead pastor at Solid Rock Church in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And there was a decent age gap for sure there. And a lot of marital problems and wanting to get divorced since at least first filing back in October of 2023. And a lot of stuff came to the surface now that many people didn't know about. And so she was found with what they ruled a self-inflicted pew pew shot on April 27th. And it wasn't until the 7th that the official Robeson County released this official statement on what her cause of unaliving was. Solid Rock Church in Myrtle Beach is a non-denominational church that is apparently still working to continue expanding, and they have plans for that as well currently, even after this. It started with his father. His father has his own challenges, but has another organization, I'm going to say, in terms of churches separate from that. But JP was the lead pastor at Solid Rock. Yeah.
Okay, so how many years have they been doing this?
I know that JP grew up in the church and with his father and doing missionary work. I would say pretty much from when his father was able to pass it along kind of to him, he probably went out and started and continued doing the work that his father had done.
He's 44 now.
Hmm.
Okay, so will you take us through kind of the timeline of like she and he meeting, but also like everybody's former and all the connections that go with the former relationships prior to these two coming to meet and get married?
Yeah, so Micah was originally the babysitter for John Paul Miller and his wife at the time. When Micah turned 18, John Paul married her to his best friend, another man, in 2012. Fast forward to 5 years later, there's an alleged affair between Micah and John Paul Miller where he ended up writing a letter that was very lengthy to the congregation, pretty much admitting and apologizing for the affair. And then they got married in 2017. So he first officiated his babysitter's wedding and then married her 5 years later.
But some say he started grooming her as early as 14, and the first wife, Allison, has come out and made a statement and said they had an affair when she was 15.
Yes, that has come out. I confirmed that myself, but I do believe Allison, she has signed affidavits and been really helpful in coming
Right.
forward and talking about things.
And
But
they
he
have how many
was,
children? The
I
first
believe,
marriage. Yeah. Five,
I
four?
believe five, yes.
Okay. So then now in 2000 2012 they get married?
2012 is when Mica married her first husband. Yeah.
Okay, and so then 2017 they get divorced. I mean, and then they get married. John-Paul and Mica get married.
Yes.
Okay, and so take us from there.
So from there, they were married in 2017, and a pretty pivotal event was allegedly there was a woman who was also part of the church, Susie Skinner, and allegedly in 2021 they had John Paul had an affair with her. Um, at that same time, on September 6th of 2021, Susie Skinner's husband, who was a paraplegic and a motivational speaker, had what they ruled as an accident, and he normally would sit by a pool in his wheelchair, and somehow his wheelchair ended up in the pool, and it was ruled as an accidental drowning.
And so then from that time in 2021 in September, she and JP resumed their affair.
Allegedly, yeah, they
Allegedly.
had.
Okay.
I don't know whether it was before or after, but in 2021, it's rumored that they were having an affair. Yeah.
Okay, and there's but Mica was very involved in the church. She had a beautiful voice. A lot of people
Yes.
looked up to her. She was very close to her family, sisters, siblings, parents, but they were not part of the church.
For the most part, no. I do believe at some point her sister did work with the church or work out there or was associated in some way. I don't know too much on that end.
Okay.
Because I think she had multiple sisters. Yeah.
Okay, and so when did things start taking a turn? And let's keep, he is also a self-proclaimed AI expert, artificial
That
intelligence.
that is his lawyer, Tom Winslow, who also signed off on certain power of attorney documents, like notarized with them.
Okay, and he owns the land. So where the church sits, JP and his father own this land, 180 acres, I believe, where the church is being built, and the lawyer owns the land that parallels to it. So they're all very close.
The land that's near Lumberson State Park, where Micah was found. Yeah.
Okay, so had she been expressing online, kind of going out and saying, divorce is a bad thing. I'm really in a bad place right now. And then take us to some of his sermons.
Those have been taken down, haven't they?
I don't believe too many have been. Maybe on the website themselves, but I believe their YouTube channel
Okay.
still has them.
Even the ones where he talks about her.
I believe those are still up. I
Yeah.
would have to check.
Okay.
And he goes off on some rambling, not really preaching the Lord's word. It's bashing her.
100%. He really likes to dig into her mental health, and allegedly she had been diagnosed as schizophrenic, bipolar, antisocial personality disorder. He said all of these things and was on allegedly lithium. And the interesting thing is she supposedly wasn't diagnosed with any of these things until 2017 when they were married.
And one of the interesting things about lithium that you and I discussed is because it is such a powerful medication for bipolar disorder, it's not a kind of medication that you can go on and off of. It's a medication that you have to take. But didn't he also admit to taking her prescription?
He admitted to being on lithium in a sermon and talked about the same exact things that he claimed Micah experienced in terms of feeling very low and depressed and having suicidal thoughts. So it's very interesting that he said all of that. It's kind of like projection, in my
Right,
opinion.
right. And these both claim they were both on 900 milligrams of lithium. And, it's, as you said, it's not something you just jump on and, oh, I forgot to take it 2 days. It's almost down to the hour you have to take it. So if you take it every day at 9 o'clock in the morning, it has to remain that because it can mess with your psyche and your equilibrium. It's such a severe drug.
Yeah.
So at this point, nobody seemed alarmed that he had apologized to his congregation multiple times for screwing up. And there was some fundraising done to go to Africa that he was accused of maybe misappropriation of funds.
So she was actually listed as a person that they were investigating. Mica was, as well as JP, and as well as Winslow too, the lawyer and attorney. They had open investigation on March 15th, allegedly, the FBI, into funds that went missing from the Dare to Care mission trip to Africa. And they have come out this past week saying that it was written off kind of as a domestic dispute, but Mica did supposedly steal those funds. We're talking about just under $1,200, just under. Her father had explained it as it was money she took out for the mission and was going to be reimbursed by the church, but that we do know would be JP, I believe. So it's very interesting. I think it's on. Well, I do know it's ongoing. They said in terms of financial and investigating it further.
Okay, so she left no note, correct?
That we know of now.
Right, but she had binders
Allegedly,
documenting, yes, that she has given to her lawyer.
I don't know whether she herself gave them, but her lawyer has the
Her
binders.
lawyer, yes, somehow the lawyer has these or has a copy of them explaining quite a magnitude of things.
And these binders allegedly contain documents that highlight issues of some intimate abuse amongst the marriage.
Yes, that allegedly that he would force her into do intimate acts that were she considered, and most I would think would, immoral, inhumane, and
With homeless people that would be picked up of any gender. These were forced upon her allegedly, and that his previous wife has come forward and in her affidavit has confirmed that she also.
he had an addiction to working girls.
That, and in her signed affidavit that came out, I think on the May 10th recently, it said that he had confided in her, the former wife Allison, of having an addiction to working girls and being with a minor, at least one minor under the age of 16,
And,
allegedly.
and we will run a picture in a second. But the first wife, Allison, and Micah, literally, I thought, is that the same person? They look that much alike. It's eerie. I mean, I wondered if they were even related because they just look so much alike.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so, but nobody still seemed alarmed in this church.
People may have been because Micah originally filed for divorce in October of 2023, and then JP sold his house to Solid Rock, whether that be to hide assets or avoid taxes or all of the above. And so at that point too, Micah, from that time period to some time period, she did take time away and go to Kansas where her family was, I believe. And she came back to Myrtle Beach, and during these times, he began speaking on her mental health publicly in the congregation, giving sermons, saying that, for one, she talked about how the mentally ill people don't realize that they're mentally ill and need to learn on the people that tell them they're mentally ill, and would clearly kind of call out his wife in that.
Well, that was what I found so fascinating, is that he's going to basically condemn her in a way for reaching out to people for help or having these discussions with people, and how that she wasn't allowed to do that. She needed to pray about it, or she needed to bring it to him, where he's turning around and having those same kinds of conversations on camera with congregations of hundreds of people and blasting her live.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Okay, and so she was found April 27th of this
Yes.
year. Like I said, already filed for divorce. She drove to a national forest,
It was a state park, yeah.
state park, and in not far, I don't know how far from where the church was.
It's about 70 miles. Yeah.
Okay, but she called 911 and said, "Can you tell me where I am?" And they said, "Are you lost? Do you not know where you are?" And so then she proceeds to tell them her plan of what she plans to do. And I've heard parts of the tape broken down that there's faintly a man's voice in the background. Then there's been all kinds of different theories. That one said that she had done the act in the back of her head, which, and that there was two casings.
So she called dispatch and asked, "Are you able to ping my phone?" And when she was trying to ping her phone, she said, because she did say what she was going to do, and she wanted her family to be able to find her. And one thing I just want to note on that the dispatch does ask, like, "Hold on 1 second, let me make sure I know where you are, can find you." And that was the dispatcher's office or way of keeping her on the line by appealing to what she was asking, in my opinion, and some other people's, because people are like, "Oh, she didn't realize where she was." No, it's trying to buy time, because I guarantee that dispatch is already probably sending patrol and people out there. And when they did arrive, there's allegedly, well, not allegedly, there's a man that Micah passed while walking that trail. It was about just a little bit over a mile from where she parked her car to where her belongings were found. And she passed a guy and waved to him. This man has come forward and said that. And then there's the fisherman that heard just one shot and a faint cry, is how he described it. And he said that in at least 2 interviews, and he was questioned by authority. And following that, he asked 2 men that were going by in a boat if they had heard that. And they said, yeah, or something. I can't speak too much to that, but I do know that law enforcement did question the people in the boat. And when they were coming to look for Micah, allegedly a person had helped had found her body. And while law enforcement was already there, though, I believe.
Okay, and then where was the receipt that I saw last night for the ammunition purchased by him?
So the ammunition was purchased by Micah the same time that she purchased her pew pew at. It was at a pawn shop, Miller's pawn, or no, it was at a pawn shop, and Dick's pawn shop at 12:34. That's when Micah's observed purchasing that pew pew.
Okay, and so that of the same day.
Same day with the ammo as well. Yes.
So how long did it take that anybody then to find her where she was?
I would say so. I don't know. I don't think that they've been super upfront on that end, but I do know the 911 call was made at 2:54 p.m. and I do believe she was found pretty quickly after, well, within an hour, I think is what I've heard.
But the really crazy thing about it is, does he have an alibi?
He does, allegedly, and well, according to law enforcement, he has a solid alibi. He was at a sporting event the day before, and well, he's an alibi the day before and the day of, at a sporting event in Charleston, South Carolina, with people are believing to be Susie Skinner. Allegedly, another person and his children were there as well.
The woman he's having an affair with.
Allegedly, yeah.
Right, allegedly. That her husband passed away in the wheelchair a few years before. Okay,
Yes.
so now let's get to the point of him announcing it in church. How
Yeah.
bizarre was that? Now we're getting to the nitty gritty.
It was, I've never seen or heard of anything like that. And I think a notable thing too, he held 2 sermons before that and before even announcing it. And he had everyone stand up and not say a word. And then he said that his wife died the night prior with a self-induced pew pew wound. And they weren't allowed to talk about it. They just had to leave the church.
They said, leave the church immediately. No one discussed this. I may be taking a break. It could be a day, could be a month. I don't know. But, just pray for me and my family. But no one discussed this.
Mm-hmm.
Not a tear shed. Nothing.
And allegedly, too, there was also a tracker on her car as well. And during this time, too, Micah had tried to file for like an order of protection and said that she had been stalked, been harassed, and even so much so that JP had showed up at some point and followed her all the way to the police station when she was trying to make this report, as well as what I had heard.
But the man fixing her car is the one that found the tracking devices.
Yes, the man fixing their car found the tracking devices, and on March 11th, Mica files police reports saying that her tires were slashed.
And in his description of her in the congregation, it was like, my wife likes beautiful things. She likes a nice car. Oh, your wife just died. Why is that necessary? It was obviously he wrote that. And, just the narcissism, I think, is just a case study. So now we know the FBI is involved. And as well with, it's what, Robinson County?
Yeah, Robinson County.
South Carolina.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's where the incident occurred, not where she's from.
No, she's from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Yeah.
Which is a different, oh, you're fine. Which is a different county.
Yes.
Okay. So
It's out of a different state too. So South Carolina, and then she crossed state lines, which is, I think, very interesting. A lot of people were very interested in if there was a reason behind that or why, because she did cross into North Carolina. Yeah.
I think that she's maybe laid a bread trail, because then it becomes federal if somehow he's involved and she's crossed state lines.
I think that's very, very likely. And also because of the investigation that was already going on into the financial funds, I believe that if the FBI was already investigating all of the people involved, and that included Mica, and Mica most likely was aware of that at that time too. And so if the person you're investigating shows up unalived, of course the FBI is going to continue to follow that. So allegedly the FBI has said, and same with Robeson County, that they had been involved in the investigation from the very early stages in terms of her unaliving.
Okay, so then there was a waitress that came forward with some texts that he sent her that were inappropriate. Was it the night of the sermon at the church?
I do believe there was definitely contacted someone after giving.
Right. He'd gone to have some, maybe let off some steam, get something to eat, have a beer, do something, and there was a waitress that he was flirting with, and she kept these texts.
The night he
Yes.
announced.
Yes.
Yeah, the night they announced he went to a bar and had been talking
Can
with.
you read us what they say?
I don't have them right in front of me. Sorry.
Tell us about the cremation.
So the cremation, a lot of people do think is interesting in terms of how quickly it happened. However, when we think about it, it still did happen very quickly. Micah passed away the 27th. Allegedly, JP was asked multiple times by Robeson County to come and see her, but he hadn't, and we still know on April 30th, he was trying to get into Micah's apartment because the building manager saw him and called law enforcement. So he didn't seem to be in a rush to go see her body, but she was cremated early on. The family has gone back and said that they were allegedly forced to sign a paper to see her before that, which is interesting too. And I think a lot of people are wondering like when she was cremated, this or that. I think when you see her, this is whether it had happened yet or been planned. Her obituary is written through a site, that Borough County Crematorium. They do. That's pretty much what they do. They do other funerals and stuff, but I think it's interesting
Even
where the
her-
obituaries.
Yeah, her obituary is very strange to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like the context of it sounds very much like one of his sermons.
Another notable thing about it too is that it has the same link to where donations. It says the family has requested, I believe, that donations be made to the Dare to Care fund, which is the same one that was being investigated by the FBI, and it's still linked in her obituary.
Okay, so what day was this sermon? Sunday, March 3rd?
He gave the sermon announcing her passing the following day, so the 28th.
Okay, so that Monday, he sends a text, which we'll post, to this waitress, And he says, "Hey, what are you doing?" She said, "I'm working. I'm training in the bar." "That's nice. Maybe I'll stop in later. Why don't you send me a picture? By this weekend, I can make you an old fashioned." So I guess she's learning to be a bartender. He goes, "Nice." She said, "I have to hide my phone, so I can't take a selfie at the bar. No phones in front of customers." "Okay, well, here's a recent picture." So she sends a picture of himself, which she too looks a lot like Mica. He goes, "Dang, you're beautiful." And she goes, "Thanks so much." Now, does that sound like a man in mourning?
No, the whole case is terrifying to me.
100%. I think no matter what, whether he pulled the trigger or not himself, his life is easier and he doesn't care at all that she is not here.
Well, and, we were watching someone else, I believe, on YouTube who has done a lot of investigating and is in touch with neighbors. There's even some speculation about some changes that have been made to his truck. The back window, like supposedly pictures are missing in the back tailgate, the rims on his truck. It might be a whole new truck together. He was seen at a brake store changing some things out.
So there is footage of JP, I think it was on the 15th, so a couple days ago, of JP getting served papers, 2 in a row pretty much, back to back legal documents, and you can see in that footage as well the truck that is different. Whether they changed the whole truck or changed the tailgate and took the stickers off, it's different.
What are some of the things that stand out to you as massive red flags of issues that don't sit well with you in the final conclusion of, she unalived herself?
For me, I would say, which came out a little bit later, was the shell casings. That was a new one for me that it wasn't originally announced that there had been multiple shell casings. Again, we also are hearing it from the father, I believe, originally, which obviously we know JP was a horrible man by the way he conducted himself and the things that he would say in his sermons and the evidence that was left behind. And everyone wants to see him behind bars, but I also consider that when I think about how family may speak on it. But the shell casings were new. The timeline doesn't concern me too much personally, or the fishermen because they've been over, but definitely the shell casings, and also the fact that they most likely, from what I've heard, have not done a GSR or pew pew residue test.
They have not.
Well, they haven't come out. I would think by now they'd want to clarify it and come out and say if they had. They have not said one way or another. It's spreading on the media that they haven't done anything, but it's also coming just pretty much from one source. So I would say it's not been confirmed one way or another, and I would feel like if they had done it, they would have come out and said by now.
What are some of the things, because you've been kind of doing this for a while now, is taking the time to investigate and do some deep diving in other cases. We know the whole world's kind of up in arms about this case right now, but what are some of the other ones that you have done research on that you feel like have gone cold and aren't getting the traction or the attention that they deserve?
I personally think that once you have, toxicology, I think should have been done. You can't really do that now. It would be very difficult, I believe. Uh, then additionally, I think underneath her fingernails should have been tested and supposedly were not, because she did have scratches and bruises on her allegedly, and that comes from the father. But that could also be explained by you are hiking through woods and they are not gentle pulling a body out of the water either. But I do think that should have been done, and I think a more thorough autopsy, if one was performed or not, we do not know, should have been done as well, and that's a big red flag to me.
Now, he even claimed he tried to raise her from the dead.
And he also claimed during that same time at her funeral service that he laid with the body 4 times that week. Within that week, he got that chance.
But he wouldn't allow the family to see her unless they agreed to sign off. She would be cremated immediately.
Okay, so when did he have her committed?
He had her committed on February 8th. But I will say the facility that she was supposedly, it comes out as involuntarily committed, is not an inpatient psychiatric unit. I just think that's something to be notable and something that should be looked into a little bit more, but it was the 8th of February, yeah.
So nobody at that time considered taking his spousal privileges away. Is an interesting,
Or power of attorney.
yeah.
No, Micah filed for divorce like back in October 2023. So I think that the law I think failed her, and she did try to seek help and get a like order of protection, and that didn't happen.
You know, that's one thing that should be noted to anybody who is in a domestic abuse situation or divorce proceedings. If you are actively trying to escape a situation that you feel unsafe in, be sure that you reassign your medical power of attorney to someone you trust. Because in this instance, the law may have failed her because he was still legally her husband.
And one thing to note too that a lot of people don't talk about but is important, the power of attorney that was signed was over her care directives, I believe. And yes, Winslow, the little bit of a shady lawyer, was on that. I believe it was November 28th, 2022. I would have to check for sure on that. And a lot of people are saying it wasn't notarized right or not. I haven't looked enough into that, but it didn't go over mental health care. It went over power of attorney, like illness, physical health. So that also, I just think is something important to know.
But that's just how the way he wrote it. So, in other words, it could have been all the things that she needed. She just needed to have the right lawyer.
Yeah, it could have been. I, if I remember right from reading it, it didn't seem to mention anything about psychiatric illnesses in it. And so I think it's interesting that he did still have power of attorney over that, and she didn't try to challenge that in any way.
But her family is coming in saying that none of those diagnoses they believe she actually had.
Correct. Yeah, and friends too. And I would say based on the videos that she posted, because she kind of became like an advocate for women in domestic violence situations and had been putting videos and stuff out on Facebook. And her sister had talked about a little bit of it and shared a little bit of Micah's story along the same time frame. And in those videos, in my personal opinion, she seemed, I'm not saying, I think she probably definitely, given the abuse and trauma she suffered, had depression and trauma and anxiety maybe from that,
Of
but I do
course.
not believe, yeah, I just don't believe that she was schizophrenic. That I know is a big one that came out by JP.
But a lot of people are saying, like her in the pew pew shop or purchasing things that, and again, I don't have one where that it could be AI because that the lawyer and JP were AI experts. Because she does give a kind of a speech or a talks online. And, I'm going through some things right now. And then some of the verbiage she uses, I don't know which one, but a lot of people are saying it wasn't what she normally would have said. And how you can duplicate people's voices. And do you think that
I
that's a possible, would have stooped to that level?
I personally don't believe that it was AI in terms of the footage or in terms of the 911 call. That's my opinion on that. And we have to remember too, the family spoke with someone who speaks with the sheriff at Robeson County, and the family came in and spoke with the sheriff, and they got to see all the footage, right? So what we're seeing on and what's being released is screenshots of her in the pawn shop, screenshots of her in the convenience store, and we have a
Right.
little tiny clip of her walking. So they're blurry, really, really pixelated things. But the family sat down with the sheriff and with everyone there and never came out once prior and said that it was AI or that they thought it wasn't her until certain things and certain big creators started instantly once the report was put out. And I have to say, this is the most thorough report that I've seen put out by a police station in regards to this. Like for their first report to put out for the information that they gave for a self unaliving.
Okay, and there's lots of other, has Winslow, has he come out making many statements? He's not really doing the lawyer thing.
He doesn't seem to be doing the lawyer thing, no. And I don't know about his, I know because people are going to ask and question it, I don't know about his alibi or if he was even asked to provide one on that day.
Well, this is just, I mean, absolutely riveting to me. And I would hope that, somebody made a comment last night in one of the rooms that, well, the family's wealthy. They paid off these people, they paid off that people. Sorry, there's not enough money to keep paying off people to cover this up. The truth will come out.
And I agree. And I think because the FBI was involved from early stages, whether or not people want to say that or not, they've come out and said that themselves, and it's been reported. I don't think that Robeson County, the FBI, I think the United States attorney or district attorney was there as well, like involved from the early stage. I don't think there's any way to pay all those people off.
No. Well, I can't get enough of this. And every day we're finding out something new. But I have a feeling he is going to trip up. He's, just his level of narcissism is just overwhelming. Every classic red flag that, you learn about, he's done. And it's even like she can't defend herself from the grave, and it's all about poor him. He never even really talks about how it affected his children. And apparently she wanted children, and he was holding that over her head too.
Where was her ex-husband, his previous best friend? Has he made any statements?
Not that I've seen. I believe he has gone off and pretty much kind of started
A new life.
his, pretty much, yeah.
Is he still involved in the church? And is JP's first wife still involved in the church?
I believe both of them are not involved in this church at all at this time or once they separated.
But it was, I know it's non-denominational, but it was kind of an unconventional, I don't know what you would compare it to.
Didn't you all say that the congregation had gone from, quite a few hundred to 50 in the last week or something?
I'm not sure.
I know their numbers supposedly had dwindled, but they also were being very, very selective. I heard last week, I was thinking about going, someone else went, and they could not access or go to the service that was on Sunday
Because it was so large.
because they're being so tight.
No, because they're not letting people in.
But again, he
Correct.
talked recently about building on a new building.
And they are doing that. They released a statement a couple days ago on their Facebook, and it originally read something to the fact of the church is doing alive and well, and we plan to continue with construction. I'm just paraphrasing a little bit, but
Right.
the words alive and well were in there. And then they edited it because alive and well is not really the right words, in my opinion, and most of the public's to be using during this time. And they edited it and just saying that they're going to continue with their plans to expand.
I mean, and this is my words. I'm not speaking for Kylynn, but, they're not paying taxes. He is not representing anything about the Lord's word. And I didn't even see him with a Bible in any of his, any of his sermons, the few that I watched. And yet you still got people that are vulnerable enough that want to come and donate to this church or,
We're at the point now with social media, with the investigative capabilities, with people. We are well versed in what abuse looks like, and whether she was actually the person who unalived herself or she wasn't, there are clear patterns of behavior that contributed to the loss of her life. And it should not be an open and closed case of she pulled the trigger. There should be ramifications. There should be people held accountable for not getting her, either the help she needed or contributing to the onward demise of her state of mind, considering the fact that she was being harassed, she was being stalked, she was being tracked, she was, previously groomed. All of these things should hold a person accountable, even if they did not pull the pew-pew.
Right.
We have to evolve to a place where people like Mica are protected from this kind of abuse, from this kind of toxic burden of people who hold the notoriety that he did in the public eye. And we've all met a woman or 10 women who feel like I'm not heard, I'm not protected, I'm not safe, I can't escape, I don't know where to go, I don't have money, I don't have resources. And hopefully this helps bring hundreds of thousands of similar cases just like this to life. And people like Mica can get the resources and the help that they need before this sort of thing happens to them.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think that laws are not in place yet. Unfortunately, it's going to be an unprecedented case. Um, we have the Conrad case where his girlfriend was telling him explicitly to off himself multiple times over, and that was pretty unprecedented too, where she did get charged with second-degree manslaughter, I believe, but it was explicit text, and so that we know of, we don't have that here yet.
Right.
Well, Kylynn, where can everybody find you on TikTok?
You can find me at TikTok with __ Kylynn, KYLYNN.
And you're on there almost every night from like 8 o'clock until after midnight, and you just host a room where people are free to come hang
Last
out.
night there was 20,000 people in there.
But you guys are all like these, again, what I think vigilantes of the truth is just making sure that, the right things are being talked about. You're very careful about saying hypothesis and not using inappropriate language to...
You are so mature beyond, I was just so impressed the minute I heard you last night, because the way you phrased everything was so eloquent.
But
and
one of the things that we've talked about is that people are stopping going to your traditional news sources for this kind of information, because everything that's being put out isn't always actually the facts, and everything does have a bias to it. And if we want to take a hold of our country and run it in the way that it should be run, to be the United States of America and get back what I think we all feel like we've lost, is that sense of togetherness and power and truth for the unjust, we need to start doing things like what you're doing, and that's getting loud and it's taking action and being proactive about things like this that affect many, many, many underserviced people. You, again, have talked about other cases that you're investigating and doing some work on that kind of seem to have been swept under the rug. So hopefully we get to have you back on in the future, and we're going to do some deep diving and kind of investigate those with you, because we don't want to see anybody's, death unjustly researched, and we want everybody to have justice. And Christy, you have plenty of cases that we'd like to talk about in the future, including the baby Lisa case, which I know she told you about last night.
Kylynn last night. And I just, there's a lot of things I'd like to delve into. Darlie Routier, sitting on death row here in Texas. And I was a reporter on that case, and I feel she's innocent.
I mean, we all hear about cases, people who are taken off of death row and released from prison because they were wrongfully convicted. And this is not coming for the law or the justice system in any way, but advancements need to be made. And again, those advancements will only be made with people of the public getting louder. And I think Mica's family is a perfect example. If they weren't being so loud about justice for her, the world might not be involved to the degree it is now. And so props to them for saying, you know what, she's worth all of this, because she absolutely is.
She's beautiful. And I said last night, and it's an election year, and that makes a huge difference too. Who was the congressman, that he had affiliation with?
JP had sought legal counsel from Val Guest.
Okay.
A few times.
Who's a South Carolina congressman?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And this was prior to all of...
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, we have a lot of investigating to do, but with that, we will
see you again tonight. But don't forget, when you're following, just to go down, smash that follow button, and listen Christy, and you can find us. You can go to our link tree, listen Christy, or Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube for sure. But bring it on, and so it sends you a notification every time we come on with great guests like Kylynn. So,
and if you have
follow,
if you have cases that you're aware of that you're like, you know what, this didn't get enough attention, and we have some information that we'd like to share, reach out to us at Estrogen at Listen Christy. Reach out to Kylynn on TikTok.
Right.
share the message, because we
Yes.
want to help do what we can do to help, and with the resources that we have, and hopefully share some information.
Because I told Kylynn, I said, we ride at dawn. I said, I feel like a cross between Nancy Drew meets the Charlie's Angels.
I love that. Thank you
Okay.
so much for having me on. I really appreciate
You're
it, and all that
awesome.
you
Thank
guys.
you. You know, you're doing tireless, payless work that is just
But it's
probably
so
from the
needed.
passion of your heart, and so we thank you and applaud you. So,
Yeah, you're a hero.
with that being said, say goodnight, Lucy.
Good night, Lucy.